Hey, the rulers are Milliums are partnering up to do something pretty classy with their new spoilers. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So we have this sub-ruler, Ryula. Starts with Millium on the starter deck version of Millium, gives him the Dragon Crest ruler name, which is important for their stones, lets you have an additional die every time you roll a force effect, and at the beginning of your turn, if you control a ruler, you roll a d6, which will be force in this case. If the result of the roll is 4 or higher, you swap to a different Millium and then add 1 extra dragon power counter. Then if that result is 8 or higher, you also draw a card, so pretty nice. Then we have the Alabaster Spell Weaving Shaman, 2-cost ancient, 3/5, untouchable barrier that you can pay 1 for, locks both players with spells and activate abilities to the main phase, still quick cast, just only main phase, and has that kind of anti-cheating effect where if something would be put into play without being paid full cost, it gets removed from the game instead. Then it has an enter effect that really only does anything if you paid full cost for it, where it gets some extra counters and then forces 1, and if the result is 4 or higher, you get a free Dawn of the Earth into your hand. Our Frog Prince is here, 2-cost 2/9 with Mythic and Barrier. If you would perform a force effect, you roll an additional die and then ignore 1. So whenever you perform a force effect, if the number is 2 or higher, then you get to make a Resonator a 1/1 frog as long as this card's in the field. And then you can give it a magical kiss by paying 1 white and forcing its controller to force 1. If the result is 5 or higher, it gets shuffled into the deck and becomes a 6/7 light fairy tale token with multi-strike and eternal. Constantino, the lucky boy, 2-cost, drain barrier with 1 cost or less. Non-fairy tale J-Res that have more attack than him enter the field rested and can't be recovered in any way. Automatic abilities of fairy tale J/Resonators without Constantino get their triggers an additional time every single time they would trigger. And on enter, you get to search your deck, hand, or graveyard for Kid Puss in Boots and put it into the field. Lastly, it has an inheritance effect to cancel a God's Art ability. Dragonoid Beekeeper, a 1-cost 2/3 with quick cast, drain, and barrier, but when it's fighting stuff, that stuff loses multi-strike, pierce, and bane. Cards named Millium's Weapon gain remnants, and as an additional cost to play them, you get to force. If the result is 6 or higher, you copy the spell 2 additional times and choose new targets for the copy. And then whenever you attack or block, he forces 1, and if the result is 3 or higher, you gain 6 life and he gets a little bigger. Lastly, we have the Grimm's Family Crown of Stars, a 3-cost Mythic Eternal that has Mastery, successor of the Dragon Crest, and tap, and then you may banish this card, perform the following effects based on the number of dragon power counters you control. 5 is if you force 1, you get a 6 or higher, you draw a card. 10 is if you force 1 and roll 7 or higher, then you get 1,000 life. 20 is force 1, if the result's 8 or higher, you get 3 free will, and 30 is if you banished this card as part of the activation cost, and you control the Stone of the Dragonoids, you win the game. Really excited to see what comes out of it. We'll see what ruler comes next though. Until then, class dismissed.